Look back to a time where you went on a mission trip. For some of you, that might be pretty far back. If you haven't been on one, then it's not too late to go. But think back to this mission trip when you felt that spark inside of you to sign up, make the leap, go somewhere new, spread the good works and message of Jesus. And remember that in-between moment where you both looked ahead and looked back, the uncertainty of the future, but excitement of the future, of leaving old things and entering new experiences, the passion you had to leave everything that you knew behind to follow Jesus. I remember when my wife went to Guatemala, she served there for a year, and all the things she had to leave behind to do that. Her family, her friends, her well-paying job, hot Cheetos and hot sauce. But all the things that she was being led into through that experience. New friends, giving her giftings to serve migrants who had nothing. New experiences, deep personal and spiritual growth. As Jesus says, whoever loses his life will save it. I remember when I went on a mission trip for 2 weeks to Costa Rica when I was 20. I thought I could do this all the time here in Fresno. And I did, through joining an internship with inner city youth. But something happens when we return from the mission trip. We sink back into routine, comfort, monotony. We worry about what we're going to eat for dinner and feel bad about spending too much time on our phones. We feel too tired to do anything after work and watching the kids, and we're bombarded constantly with advertisements and temptations. We have access to all the world's problems, but we are confused and puzzled and may feel powerless as to what to do. Where did the rush of feeling alive really go? How do we truly take up our cross and follow Jesus in our modern society? The big question I'm going to ask you guys today is, what is Christ asking you to give up, and what is Christ leading you into in this season? In our passage in Mark, we discover who Jesus really is. He's somebody different than people who thought he was, and he's going to do something very different than people thought that he was going to do. And we learn what it truly means to follow Jesus. In Mark chapter 8, we find Jesus and his band of disciples in their own in-between moment, on the road between two towns. On this road, Jesus strikes up a conversation. There is much confusion as to who the Messiah may be back then. Some think he's John the Baptist, some think he's Elijah, some think he's a prophet. And I wonder if we still have a lot of confusion as to who our Savior is today. What kind of Savior are you looking for? Is it one that will take all your problems away? Is it one who will give you just a little more income, a little nicer house, a couple more things? Is it someone to save you from your crazy in-laws? Is it a Savior to swoop in to run and save the country? Is it a famous person who you look up to? Now, there's nothing wrong with these things. We should provide for our family, vote for a good person to run the country, and learn from people who are successful. But at the end of the day, these people or things can't save us. The only person that can save us is Jesus and his way of life. Peter speaks out. He knows who Jesus really is, the Christ. And maybe the disciples were thinking that too. Jesus tells them not to tell anybody. It isn't time for people to know yet. Some scholars that think that this is the big turning point in our story, the big reveal of who Jesus actually is. I believe that the even bigger reveal is what Jesus is going to do. The type of Savior the Jewish people of the time were looking for was someone who will defeat their oppressors and grant them new freedom. When I look at politics and culture, it doesn't feel so different today. But Jesus is going to present himself as a very different type of Savior. Then Jesus tells us what he's going to do. He's going to suffer, be rejected, be killed, and will rise again. Nothing you would expect from a king. Jesus says the opposite of what people of the time would expect or want him to do. Peter takes Jesus aside to rebuke him. He is very upset. This isn't the way things are supposed to go. And Jesus rebukes Peter instead in front of all his disciples. Get behind me, Satan. We will talk about this rebuke in a minute, but let's look at the next line. For you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man. Well, what are the things of God and the things of man? If you are new to the faith or just checking things out, a great place to start for discovering the things of God is Matthew chapter 5 through 7. It gives a really simple outline. It outlines some do nots: do not lie, murder, hold grudges, commit adultery, make promises you can't keep, and also has lots of great to-dos. Love your enemy, forgive, pray, fast, engage in spiritual disciplines, spend time with God, give to the poor, focus on the things that really matter. The things of God are outlined in Jesus' teachings and throughout the New Testament. Jesus gives a commandment to the crowd this time, which means that this is for us too. Deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow him. Deny yourself? What does it mean to deny yourself? Does it mean I shouldn't eat that cookie that I really want to eat or stop doing that hobby that I really want to do? I think there's something a little deeper than that here. I see Jesus' relationship to Peter and his disciples kind of like a mentor and a mentee. We see this with Jesus and Peter. There are things that Peter doesn't understand yet that Jesus is trying to teach him. It's kind of like this in popular movies. Why am I painting a fence when I'm supposed to be learning karate? Why am I on this jungle planet learning from some little crazy green guy? Why am I building a surfboard from scratch when I should be out surfing? The mentee doesn't always know what the mentor is up to. So those movies were The Karate Kid, Star Wars, and Surf's Up, if you haven't seen it. Deny yourself may mean saying, I don't always know the best way forward. Maybe I need to learn from someone who's smarter and wiser than me. And Jesus asks Peter to do this when he says, get behind me. Peter, follow me, even though you don't know where we're going. I'm going to tell you a secret about young people. You guys ready? Listen close. Young people secretly want a mentor. They probably won't tell you that. They want someone who cares about them, listens to them, supports them, but they also want someone who loves them enough to tell them hard truths like, why are you working at Starbucks instead of pursuing your career? Why are your grades bad? Why do you hang out with people who tear you down? Why are you living with someone who you don't see a future with? Someone who cares about us enough to speak into our lives those hard truths. I see this with Jesus and Peter. Jesus loved Peter way too much to not correct him when he was wrong, and Jesus loved humanity way too much to not let his group of disciples derail him from his mission. Jesus says, get behind me, follow me, because there's things that you don't yet understand. I believe this church has much to offer young people. You may not understand how to post a video on TikTok, but you know a thing or two about how the world works. Then Jesus tells us to take up his cross. Take up your cross. Carrying the cross, someone Jesus predicts that he will do, and he expects us to follow. Because following Jesus is difficult. Forgiving that person you're mad at is difficult. Giving your money away is difficult. Making time for Jesus in your crazy day is difficult. And then Jesus says to follow me actively, and we don't have to wait to see where he's going first. Most of the time, God is leading us into somewhere new, somewhere we don't expect. Now we'll ponder the mysteries of these following paradoxes. Save your life and you will lose it. Lose your life and you will save it. Gain the world and lose your soul. If you're ashamed of me, then I will be ashamed of you. The last one makes a little more sense to me than the first two. Save your life and you will lose it. Lynn Joe sent me an article about how we see wellness, wealth, and success as evidence of God, but Jesus provides us a different way forward. A way that may involve pain and suffering, but God is present with us even in our most difficult times, and Jesus wants us to grow. He wants us to focus on the things that really matter, that will last forever. And those things aren't money or worldly success. Losing your life to save it reminds me of what we did when we went on a mission trip. Gain the world and lose your soul. They had a different way of thinking about the soul back then. The soul was very connected to the body. It wasn't just a spirit that left after you die. And so the soul was connected to all aspects of life. And I wonder if the body and the spirit work in similar ways. When we eat healthy food, we feel good afterwards. When we eat something unhealthy like fast food, then we feel terrible. When we care about our home, the neighborhood, the earth, then we reap the good health benefits of caring for these things. And when we follow God, similar with our spirit, through caring, loving, forgiving, it may not always feel good in the moment, but our souls will reap the benefit. And I wonder if the opposite is true. If we harbor bitterness, hold grudges, gossip, refuse to serve those in need, do what's ever best for our own self, indulge, then we will feel anxious, weary, unmotivated, tired, and unfulfilled. It takes time and work, but it is possible to move past all of these things. Filling ourselves with the things of God will truly fill our soul. Now back to our opening question. How do we truly take up our cross and follow Jesus in our modern society? What is Christ asking you to give up, and what is Christ leading you into in this season? My impression is that a majority of the people in the room know a lot about the Bible, probably way more than me. And that's good because some of you guys were my professors. But as I have learned, the Spirit can move beyond the pages. The Spirit can put convictions into our heart and mind that go beyond what is written. What is God telling you today? What are the things that you need to let go? And what are the things that He is leading you into? What is the next adventure that the Lord has for you? And the answer may not make any logical sense or any worldly sense. Maybe you have found the thing that God has called you to. That's great. Do that thing, tell people about it, and invite others into it. But maybe you're like these disciples, on the road between one place and another. And if you are, I encourage you, do what Peter does and get behind Jesus. Get behind me, Satan. Follow God and not Satan. Listen to Jesus, pray, seek, discover, actively pursue, and follow even if you don't understand where He is taking you. I get the opportunity in my nonprofit work to work with lots of churches around Fresno County. I met with over 60 pastors in the last year. And it is a unique time for a couple different reasons. We are getting used to this new thing called technology and figuring it out. It really feels like our Fresno community is coming out of the burrows we made during COVID, and we are seeing the sun for the first time. We're a little disoriented, dazed, unsure, which makes sense. We live through a rapidly changing time, and we live through a pandemic. And for those of us who have had the courage to step out, though they are a little clumsy and are learning to walk again, I have a chance in my nonprofit work to witness the spark. That same spark that most of you once had when you ventured on your mission trip. Churches meeting organizations, sometimes right across the street for the first time, and some of those organizations or schools asking, when's the church going to come back? When's the pastor going to come back? One person told me that shopping and chatting with this young mom was the best 3 hours she spent for her entire year. And in some spaces, the spark to serve our city and our community is turning into a flame that is infecting entire churches. Has the Lord put the spark in your heart? What is it? Will you deny yourself and follow, or will you let it die? Jesus has paved the way forward through His death and resurrection for us to have our own deaths and resurrections. The death of the things that don't really matter, and the resurrection of the new things of the Lord. Salvation is here and within reach, and the hope of a full life is ready for us. There is hope. We can follow the way of Jesus in forgiveness, love, care, and not be ashamed, speaking and living with boldness, so that when the Son of Man returns in the glory of His Father with all the holy angels, He will be proud of us. And something tells me that He already is.